Good evening, good afternoon, good night, wherever you may be. This is Ronnie McLean for Dark Matter Radio, and tonight we're getting into a subject that goes along with counterfeit spirits that walk among us. Something that we need to talk about, and I know that our community hasn't talked about it in some time, if at all. That subject is the subject of mythos, subject of mystery. It's the subject of mud fossils. Mud fossils has been talked about for quite some time throughout the past 10 to 15 years. There's been plenty of photos and plenty of things that have documented all of these different shapes in these rocks. Things that at some point in time may have been alive. There's a whole study on that, including a whole university, and we'll get into that as well. But this is something that needs to be discussed, these mud fossils. It goes along and coincides with the mud flood. Something very strange has happened in our history. Something that the historians don't want you to know. They may not even know themselves. Things that don't even teach you in college or any level of history. It's amazing. When we look at these mud fossils, we look at a history that is completely unseen. And sometimes you have to see it in order to believe it, because this type of history you don't get to see too much, even though it is all around you. It is everywhere. It is everywhere you look. When you look at the mountains, when you look at the grass, when you look at a rock, sometimes you might not just be looking at a rock. You might be looking at something much, much more. And tonight we're going to get into just a very, very, very basic overview of the mud fossils. And what it is that somewhere along our timeline, our history, there are titans that have been, how can I say, frozen in time. Frozen in time. Titans that were frozen in time. And they talk about it, but nobody really knows exactly how it happens. And as you can see here, with a lot of these videos or a lot of this that I'm showing you tonight, it's very interesting because you can actually make shapes out of the mountainside. You can actually make shapes out of the green fauna that is protruding out of rocks, mountains, petrified stones. And these petrified stones just might be petrified human beings. You see, in the Bible it talks about Sodom and Gomorrah and how when the cities were destroyed from above, they were destroyed, and anyone that looked back was petrified and turned into a pillow of salt. They talk about Medusa and Pericles and how Medusa had the power to be able to freeze entities in its tracks. Very interesting that they show these things, because it is the talk of myths. And as many of you know now, a lot of these myths that they got going on were actually history. And as you just seen one of the largest books, or a large book, a huge book, a giant book. And that giant book was a book, there's thousands of them in the museum, and I believe it's in Britain, in England, thousands of them in Europe, in a library full of these giant books. And you can only say to yourself, who was reading those giant books? Who were writing those giant books? And as you can see, these footprints taken from a plane far above, and you can also look at these trees, these mountains that look like trees, they could also be petrified in time. Something on our planet happened. Something on our planet happened, and we really don't know what it was. But we do know that there is talk, again, in the Quran, the Bible, and a lot of these holy books, the Mahabharata, about giants that walk the face of the earth. Huge giants. And these giants are the size of mountains. As you can see, they look just like some kind of being. And this picture that you're seeing in front of you now, they said it was a carving that was done in the 1500s. And that carving, most people believe, is a petrified giant. A petrified being. And these things are all over the planet. Just like these giant stairs. And we're going to be getting into a lot of the buildings pretty soon, because a lot of these buildings were made not for people our size, as you can see, but made for people of a much larger size. It is said that in that Australia, all the trees were cut down and it was grinded to almost a flat plane. But as you can see with all of these pictures, just take a look at them. Giant frog, man standing right next to it. And the geologist would tell you that this is just a rock formation and your eyes are playing tricks on you. This one looks like some sort of a beast. And then you see a wild cat, almost a jaguar. And these are all over the planet. All over the planet. Very interesting in terms of how these things just was frozen in time. And they're everywhere. And I mean they're everywhere. Now this picture with these two guys, they kind of look like they were photoshopped in there. So, you know, that's why I wanted to show that. But, and this is a, you know what that is. I mean, it's just frozen. I mean, it looks like just the real thing. And as you can see, there's a car in the back there, and they're saying that is also petrified. And also, this was found in the ground. So, I am very, very, very excited to show this to you tonight, because it's very important for you to understand that there's a large section of history that nobody's talking about. These mud fossils. And as you can see, this elephant and this person laying on the mountain, it's just unreal. And you can see that there were giants. And this one came out of a tomb. Well, not tomb, but a mound, pyramid mound in the Americas. And as you can see, it is just awesome. These things, most people believe were real. Now here, I just want to stop for a second, because this is Mud Fossil University. And in Mud Fossil University, he submitted samples to Harvard University. And these samples were samples of DNA, blood, coming out of the mud fossil itself. So some of these fossils, people say it looks like they're bleeding. Looks like they're bleeding, right? And a lot of these mud fossils, they look like they were injured. And you can see a lot of the bones stripping off of them and stuff like that. And it's very, very, very interesting in terms of how a lot of this stuff is just too real to be believed. Just too real. And it is very interesting when you just take a look at these things, because you never really see them in any history book. So when you take a look at these photos and look at them again and again and again, it is important for us to understand that there is a history that is hidden from us and hidden from the world. And whatever these things, beings are, it doesn't look like they were fossilized too long ago. Because in that Harvard study, when they did that study, they found out that there was live DNA amongst the samples. Unbelievable. And there's other people who found rocks, but they also look like hearts with arteries. And they found that deep inside of them, some of them was too soft. So make of it what you will, but understand this. Go to Mud Fossil University. Listen to everything he has to say on this. Because at one point, the scholars were calling him crazy. Now they're saying it's an incredible find. So learning our history is very, very, very important. This is the reason why co-creation communities are very important. And co-creation communities help us to be able to spread the information like you're seeing tonight. Spread the information like in my other video about the wheat and the tares, about the counterfeit spirits that walk among us. There are so many different things that are going on out there that we need to be able to open our eyes and be able to have a very good, firm understanding that the history that was taught us, I'm starting to think, after all the things that I'm saying, is 100% made up and a lie. It's a cover-up. It's a cover-up. And it's a cover-up because they don't want you to know who the Tamu is or where the Hikkas people came from. It's a cover-up because they don't want you to know who the root people are, or the Nazis, the ones that may have created the Tamahu and the Hikkas people. It's a cover-up because they don't want to know who the Hemaru are. And in my next show, we're going to be getting deep into a lot of these things. And the reason why I'm taking you down this path is because you need to be able to have your mind open and understand that this history that we're looking at, something happened all across this earth. And not only did it petrify large beings, but it destroyed whole entire civilizations right in its tracks. I'm not exactly sure what happened, but as you begin to start watching these pictures and looking at a lot of these things, you're going to start seeing that there was an alternate history that was given to us. And then the earth may have been somewhat repopulated by these Tamahu and Hikkas people. And we'll get into who those people are. But understand that, as an indigenous American, as, you call yourself black, which there is no such thing really, but you call yourself black African American, no such thing as that either, that you are really a designation as a Hemaru, and the Ruti and Nazis are possibly the East and West Africans, and you are the Atlanteans of the Americas, whatever you want to call it. You are of the original ilk of this universe. And remember that you are a being unlike any other on the face of the earth. You have a light being with a body, not a body with a soul. But you have a light being that has a soul within inside it, that has an everlasting, eternal light within it. And covering that is a body. And you need to know the truth of who you are, so then that way, when you do go into your co-creation communities, do go back to your nations, do go back to your tribes, do go back to your places of where you can feel safe. It's important for you to know that you are special and that you are the most revered being on the planet. And everybody wishes that they can be someone with a living light being within. Take a good look as you see a history that is unseen. And most geologists, scientists, biologists, and chemists do not want to talk about. This is Ronnie McLean, New Thunder for Anna. Have a great night. And peace be with us all. Great grand rising to you. And take care.